Morning.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jen Bailey. I think I know most of you today. And so for those of you who do know me, I just wanted to preface my comments today because my talk is going to be on hope. And so for those of you that are hoping to see an inflatable sumo suit or, fake mustache, a superhero costume, an old lady wig, I just wanted you to know that if you're hoping for those things, that you won't be disappointed because they're not going to appear. Think of today's talk as Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society instead of in This Is Doubtfire. So many of you know that I was the director of Christian education before Lisa Ball. I did that for about 5 years. And one of my favorite parts of the job, probably the only thing I actually miss about doing the job, is doing children's time. So I was excited to be able to have the opportunity to come up and do today's sermon for Laity Sunday. Well, I now have a new appreciation of what it means to write a sermon, because I've realized it's much easier to do a 5-minute talk than a 15-minute talk. And also I don't have the kids up here to help me out and give me the cute answers and the new perspective. But I do remember my very first children's time, and when I did that I talked about what would happen if I made a mistake? What would happen if I messed up? Would I be laughed at? Would I be kicked out of the church? Nanette, do you remember what happens? As if on cue, with no prior preparation, Nanette spoke up and she said, "That's not going to happen." She said, "Because we're a church family and we support each other." So I hope that is true today. So when I first started to think about the topic of hope, I thought, hey, that's going to be really easy, because hope is good, it's positive, it's optimistic. And I like to think of myself as a positive, hopeful, optimistic person, a glass half full kind of girl. Today's scriptures certainly present hope in a very positive way. "For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future of hope." And then from Romans, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you may abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." So, as I thought more and more about the word hope, I realized that there's a lot of times when we use the word hope when we don't actually have hope, when we're doubtful. We use it, but we don't expect a positive outcome. Gee, I hope I win the lottery, then I can quit my job. I cheated on my diet, I hope I didn't gain weight. I hope my husband gets me that diamond ring and not a coffee pot for Christmas. So surely there is a chance that these things might come true, but it's kind of unlikely. I think you could easily swap out the word wish for the word hope in these statements without changing the meaning. I think about the word hope in this sense, and one of the first things that I thought about, and at the risk of sounding like a 12-year-old girl, what popped into my mind was the song "Defying Gravity" from the musical Wicked. In the first 13 lines of that song, the word hope appears 8 times, but never once does either character express optimism. Glinda says, "Elphaba, why couldn't you just have stayed calm for once instead of flying off the handle?" Then she sings, "I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy now. I hope you're happy how you hurt your cause forever. I hope you think you're clever." Elphaba says back, "Well, I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy too. I hope how you're proud you would grovel in submission to feed your own ambition." Then they both say to each other, "So though I can't imagine how, I hope you're happy right now." I think at some point or another we've all used the word hope like this. I can't imagine how, but hey, I hope that works out for you. Does that sound familiar? So, what does it mean to have hope and to truly be hopeful? I think that to truly be hopeful, that instead of using the word hope and wish interchangeably, we need to use the word hope and faith as interchangeable. I think that if we are truly hopeful, we have to believe that what we hope for is actually attainable. Going back to Romans, "May the God of hope fill you with joy and peace in believing, so that you may abound in hope." Abounding in hope. I love that because to me it implies action. To put our hope into action. Because to me it's just not enough have to take action and work for those things that we hope for. And to take it one step further, I think we have to do this work even if we never get to see if it pays off. As a teacher, I think about this idea of putting hope into action without ever knowing the results a lot. I just started my third year teaching art at Central Park Middle School in Schenectady. I'm really lucky because I get to teach the 8th grade accelerated art class. I see them every day, all year long. During that year, I get to see their strengths and their weaknesses, and we use that information when we are choosing their freshman art classes. If I had a student who hated drawing but loved working with clay, I push them towards sculpture or ceramics. If I had a kid who thinks they might want to pursue animation, I encourage them to choose computer art. I hope that we make the right choices. I hope that I've given them the tools to be successful in these classes. Do I know that they are? Nope. Because despite telling them to keep in touch at the end of every year, have any of them? Nope. Sometimes the things that I do to put hope into action are small and don't take a lot to carry out. I'm not kidding when I say that I think about church almost every day. And I'm not kidding when I say I take each and every one of you with me to school every day. I park my car in the school parking lot and I see the kids as they arrive for school. I'm not gonna lie, my students are a little, let's say, active. They're often chasing each other around. They're jumping on each other, maybe throwing binders at each other, yelling at each other. Sometimes they're play fighting. Sometimes that turns into real fighting. So I take a deep breath and I give myself a little pep talk before getting out of the car and I say, okay, I know that you're a little white girl from Vermont, but you've got this. And I think about what I've learned in church and Jesus being among the people, and I get out of the car and I'm among the people. As I walk in, I try to smile and say good morning to all the students. If I know their name, I use it. If a student looks down, I ask them if they're all right. If it's Friday, I'll say happy Friday. Sometimes the students even say hi first. I know this probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but to me it's a conscious decision to greet the students each morning, or to be in a hallway during transitions, to walk down the 6th grade hall and get hugs from my students. It always cracks me up when a student who was a pain in my class 5 minutes beforehand wants to give me a hug in the hallway. By doing these things, I hope I'm taking a small step in building positive relationships with my students. Maybe if a student isn't in my class this year, they're going to be in my class next year. Maybe this will help. Maybe they'll remember that every day I said hello to them. Maybe it will help us get off to a great start to a new school year. Oh, and about the students who say hi first, like my friend Hassan. So I had Hassan last year as a 6th grader, but I don't have him this year as a 7th grader, which is probably why we're getting along a lot better. He was a little bit of a nudge in class last year, but you know what? Every morning he sees me and he greets me with a big smile and he says, "Hello, Mrs. Bailey." And you know what? It always makes the start to my day just a little bit better. I think it's important to give you some background about the students at my school and in Schenectady in general. In Schenectady, all students are given free breakfast and lunch because so many of our students live in chronic poverty. In addition, some students qualify for the backpack program. On Friday, these students receive a bag of food for the weekend because otherwise they might not have enough to eat until school resumes on Monday. Schenectady is a racially diverse community. We have many students who are immigrants whose first language is not English. Recently in professional development, we've been hearing a lot about ACEs, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. The list of adverse experiences includes living with a parent or guardian who was divorced or separated, living with a parent or guardian who has served time in prison or jail, having a parent or guardian or other household member who is violent. The most prevalent adverse effect in most states is a child who has experienced economic hardship somewhat often or very often. The higher number of adverse experiences that a child under the age of 18 has means it's more likely they are living with chronic trauma. Many of our students have multiple ACEs and are functioning at some level of trauma. So what does this mean? It means that many of our students don't develop appropriate coping skills. Often students with multiple ACEs develop one of three ways of coping. They fight, they flight, or they freeze. So what does one of these reactions look like in my classroom? I'm going to tell you about my student Kev, or Cav as he likes to be called. Cav is in 6th grade and is black. He isn't in his assigned seat, so I approach. Hey, honey, I need you to move to your assigned seat. Kev, no. Me, okay? I'm gonna give you a minute to move to your assigned seat. He does not move, but now he's grabbed Caden's work and Caden is now upset. Me, Kev, honey, you don't work well here. I need you to move. Kev, no, you're bugging. Do you think I'm gonna sit next to that kid? No! At this point, Kev is out of his seat. He's now knocking other kids' work off the table. There's also some probably non-church appropriate language included in his response. And I don't know why that it's taken me 2 years of working in Schenectady to make this connection. And that is, I've just asked Kevin simply to move his seat, and this is his reaction to me. I pray that he's never pulled over by a police officer and reacts in a similar way. So, what can I do for students like Kev? Well, I hope that I can teach Kev what it means to be resilient. I hope I can help him to develop more appropriate reactions. I hope I can help him develop more appropriate problem-solving skills. When I tell people that I teach art, many of people respond, hey, that must be fun. Kids love art. I can tell you, not all kids love art. Making art can be very public. After all, when we are making art, we are making something visual, meaning everyone, all your classmates can see what you are doing. But what if you're that kid who's developed a tough guy or tough girl attitude? The kid who's cool. The kid whose classmates look to you as a role model, but maybe not for the right reasons. Unless that kid is a confident artist, there's probably a good chance he or she is not even going to try. That student does not want to see his or her classmates see him or her fail. These are usually the kids that look at me and say, so why do we have to take art anyway? They don't believe me that when I tell them that art can help them to be better problem solvers. Sometimes when they do try and they make a mistake, they give up right away. I hope that what I can teach these students is that when we make art, we are not striving for perfection. We are going to make mistakes. It's all about figuring out what to do to fix our mistakes. Will that transfer to real life? I hope so. I think that working in Schenectady has given me a new perspective on what it means to live in chronic poverty and how difficult it is to get out of that cycle of poverty. I think sometimes we believe that someone is poor because they are lazy. They don't want to get a job, they like living on government assistance. And I guess that could be true for some people, but I don't think it's true for all. What I believe is that living in poverty is difficult. It is difficult to find the services you need. It's difficult to get work if you don't own a car. It's difficult to find mental health care for yourself or a family member. It's difficult to raise your grandchild because your child is incapable or incarcerated. It's difficult if you are having trouble making the rent and facing eviction. It's difficult to think about long-term plans to get yourself in a better situation if you're worried about surviving day to day. I hope someday to have an opportunity to participate in a poverty simulation. I know that Jamie Cable did, and one of my colleagues did also. She said it was one of the best PDs she's ever attended. I bet participating in the simulation that the difficulties I listed are just the tip of the iceberg. I think that ultimately education is the answer, especially educating girls, but that's a whole nother sermon altogether. In our district, our superintendent, Mr. Spring, tells us that we are guardians of equity. Well, this makes us sound like superheroes, because we kind of are superheroes. It also means that there is a lot of pressure on our teachers in our district to erase reading deficits, increase students' state test scores, to keep kids in classrooms, to close the school-to-prison pipeline, and to do it all within a school budget. We are chronically understaffed, and there's a lot of work to be done, and it's difficult. But none of these situations are unique to just Schenectady. Many schools around the U.S. are facing these problems as well. A recent Time magazine cover article highlighted the difficulties that schools are encountering all over the U.S. Schools are having difficulty finding funding. Teachers are expected to have a master's degree but not paid the same as other professions that require higher education. The opioid crisis is putting new pressures on schools. An issue that I see in Schenectady is that in my school, the teaching staff does not look like the students. We have a racially diverse student population, but a predominantly white staff. I heard an NPR podcast on one reason why this could be. They had stated that when we desegregated schools, we desegregated the students, but not the teachers. So we kept the white teachers, but let the black and brown teachers go. So I can't help but think that having teachers that look like them, I can't help but think that our students would value their education more if their teachers look more like them. So I hope that attitudes about public education are changing, that articles like the Time magazine cover story help to shed light on some of the challenges that schools are facing. I hope that education is the answer. I see reasons to be hopeful for the students in Schenectady. One reason is that as a district, we have made it a priority to make education an equalizer. But it's not just the schools in Schenectady. There are more and more programs that are available and becoming available to our students. The Y and the Boys and Girls Club are active in our schools. They provide many different programs for our students. And in fact, I just saw in the Times-Union that a brand new facility for the Boys and Girls Club is being built in the Mount Pleasant area of Schenectady. It will have a wide variety of programming and be open until 9 o'clock at night. At the end of last year, many of my 8th grade students applied for a Smart Scholars or a Smart Transfer program. These programs make it possible for Schenectady High School students to complete college coursework. In one of the 2 programs, I can't remember which one, that students are able to complete up to 1 or 2 years of college, all before graduating from high school. Many of my students participate in one of 2 programs that happen after school and that are free of charge to students in Schenectady. Proctor's Theater offers students the chance to participate in their acting academy. So every day these students get on a bus, they head over to the theater to take classes. In the spring, they'll be performing James and the Giant Peach, and tickets to the show will be free. The Empire State Youth Orchestra's Chime program, and I think we have a lot of kids from our church that have participated in the Empire State Youth Orchestra. Well, they have a Chime program. This program provides free music education to musicians from economically disadvantaged communities. They operate in Albany and Schenectady and have recently expanded to Troy. Last year I went to the ECO Playathon at Crossgates Mall to hear some of my students play. I'm so grateful that my students have these opportunities. I hear them talk so positively about the programs and have seen their faces light up when they talk about it. And I think that the more positive relationships that these students can build, the more likely they are to overcome their economic difficulties, the more likely they are to graduate from high school and go on to college. So, I ask, are you abounding in hope? Are you? I hope so. Are you inspired to become more abounding in your hope? Well, if you are, then I don't think you have to look very far to act on that inspiration. I liked what Mike said about getting involved, because I think and I look around and I see many people here who are very actively involved in this church. But for me, when I'm active in this church, it means that I am creating those positive relationships with everyone that I see right now. So, if you've never been involved with Family Promise, I really encourage you to get involved. At the risk of sounding like a bad college essay, you'll probably get as much from the experience as the families that we host. So, are you inspired to put your hope into action? If you are, then maybe you'll leave today and you'll make a donation to ECO. PTO to help them continue their Chime program. So, are you actually disappointed that there was no inflatable costumes today? Well, I hope that you'll come to be involved in our church talent show as a performer or as a supportive member of the audience, because as Nanette said, we're all family and we all support each other. So back to my acting academy and my Chime students. Will these students become famous musicians or actors? Maybe. I hope so. Wouldn't it be so cool to be able to say that when they're accepting their award that I taught that kid? Well, it is probable. It's most likely not, well, it's possible. It's most likely not probable. And it's also likely that once the students leave Central Park after 8th grade, that I might lose touch with them. Will I know that the things I taught them help them to be more successful in high school? Will I know if they graduate from high school? Will I know if they go on to college? Will I know if they graduate from college and go on to get to successful careers? Some yes, but most probably no. Am I going to still do the work anyway? Am I still going to build the positive relationships with my students? Yep. Will it make a difference? I hope so.